Well, I think it's time to get started. Welcome back. I hope you all had a good break. We got a clock in here that's not correct. Sorry about that. The power went out in this building yesterday for a few minutes, which messes up all the clocks, and I don't know when it's going to be better, but that's all right. Everybody got a syllabus, I hope, and I'm glad you all managed to find the room. I know it's a little confusing down here, but found it already. So let's, this is Math 1015, Mathematics and Exploration, and I am Professor Stecker. That's how you say my name. Let's chat about the syllabus a little bit, and then we'll get down to business, I think. So my name is Chris Stecker. My email is there. That's the best way for you to get in touch with me. My office phone number is there, which nobody ever calls me, but that's all right. You can call me if you want to. Or just email me is probably better. My office is Banno GR16, which is like on that corner of this hallway. You can go out this little door here, or walk around, whatever. That's where my office is. And my office hours are listed on the paper, but actually they are written incorrectly. So I'm going to tell you the real deal. Hello. So where it says office hours, I apologize for the typo. It should say Tuesday and Friday 10:30 to 11 and 12 to 12:30. So this includes right before class every day. And then also Wednesday 9 to 10 and 12 to 12:30. I don't know if you care about Wednesday, but these are times when I guarantee that I will be sitting in my office waiting to talk to you and others.
So 10:30 to 11 and then 12 to 12:30 for Tuesdays and Fridays?
That's right. Yep. Yes, it is. This is confusing. Being down in this level of this building, there's actually an exit of the building that way. If you go through this door, and there's another door, you can leave the building immediately, and you'll be like down. You'll be right next to the library, kind of in between the library and Banno. That's where we are right now. Anyway, those are my office hours. Sorry for the typo on the syllabus. These are times when I will definitely be sitting around waiting for you to come and talk to me about homework problems or something like that. If those times are no good for you, then please let me know, and I would be happy to try to set up another time to chat about things. It says all of the office hours are going to be in my office, which, like I said, is right over there. Or on Zoom if you prefer. If it's inconvenient for you to come to my office, or you for some reason don't want to, I'll be sitting in there. You can walk in, or you can connect to this Zoom link, and we can talk that way if you prefer. All right. The final exam is listed there May 9th at 11:30, so put that in your calendar. And then if you hit this QR code, you will go to our class website. You will want to go there at least once a week. That's where I'm going to post the homework assignments, so you definitely want to check that out. I don't use Blackboard because I don't like Blackboard. I like to have, this is just an ordinary website. You don't have to log in or anything. You can see all of the information about the course. So, like I said, you should check that out at least once a week. All right. I'm also going to do everything on the screens here. I hope that you can see them all right. I like to do that because I am recording everything that I write on here, and also, the audio of me speaking. And then after class every day, I'm going to upload the recordings to YouTube, so that if you miss class or like before a test, you want to go back and watch something again, everything that we ever do in class will be available after the fact. And also what I'm writing, so you can watch the video if you want. Also what I'm writing here, I'm going to export as a PDF and upload that too, which is a little easier to handle than watching the whole video, although you can always watch the whole video. So I do this, for your convenience. I hope that it's helpful. be sure to like and subscribe, as they say. Yeah, so those links, all the links to all the videos will also be at the class website. So you'll want to check it out every so often. All right. Any basic questions about any of that stuff? I hope that sounds good to you. Let's look at the class description here. This is what it says in the official university catalog about this course. It says, this course introduces various ideas in mathematics at an elementary level. It is meant for the student who would like to fulfill a core math requirement, but who does not need to take mathematics for their major. Topics vary depending on the instructor, but in general includes topics of historical and current interest. So I hope that this accurately describes you. This is not for math majors or science majors. This class is intended for people who want to satisfy the math core requirement, but don't intend to go on to use math courses in their major. So I hope that satisfies you. If you're like an English major or something like that, this is the place for you. If you're a business major, this is not the place for you because you need some other classes. So I hope that you feel good about that. If you think this is perhaps not the right class for you, let me know and I will try and help you find an appropriate class. All right. By the way, I'm not always going to wear a mask. I hope you don't mind. But one of my kids has COVID right now, so I'm feeling fine. My kid is doing fine also. But anyway, I'm trying not to spread it just in case I have it. Although I don't think that I do. So anyway, that's the course is meant to be sort of math for non-mathy people. I don't know if you consider yourself a mathy type person or not. Actually, I'm as a mathematician, my professional opinion, I don't really think there is such a thing as a mathy type person and a non-mathy type person, but I suppose it doesn't matter. But anyway, that's what this class is meant to be. Yes?
I guess you would mean like logic or oriented versus feelings.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I suppose there are. Yeah, I don't really see that kind of distinction in myself, so it's hard for me to judge. I mean, I'm a mathematician, but like I got feelings too, from time to time. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, that's what the course is about, and I'm going to try to give you more of an introduction to sort of the way that I envision this course going in a moment. But let's just look through the syllabus here. What you see here, this is something that is worth paying attention to. Mastery-based assessment. The short version is the tests in this class are really weird, and your grade at the end of the semester is similarly weird. So I hope that you can all understand how this works. I've actually never tried this before. This is a new kind of way that people have started teaching math course, and actually it sounds really good to me, so we'll see how it goes. It says, the course is graded based on topic mastery. The course material has been broken down into about 30 different specific objectives, and I actually have them in a checklist here. I'm going to hand this out. This paper is very important. You should save this paper because it has the big list of topics. None of these topics should make any sense to you at this point because we haven't learned any of them. The idea is, as we go through the course, it is your job to master these about 30 things. I think there's 33 on the paper here. And by the time we get to the end of the semester, your grade is mostly based on which of these things you have mastered. This is a checklist, and when you master one of them, you check off the box. And that one, that's it. Did anybody have extras? I thought I was going to have one left over for me. I suppose it doesn't matter. All right.
Is it okay if I have no idea what any of these things mean?
Yes, I expect that nobody knows any of these things. So and that's totally fine. That's what I assume, that nobody knows any of these things. So the idea here is, so it says, each student's progress on each objective will be tracked in a checklist. You all have the same checklist, and as you master these topics, you check them off. And I have my own version of this list for all of you in my grade book, and I'm going to check them off. All right? The way that you check off one of these is by correctly answering a question on a test. So our test will have one question per item in this list. And if you get it right, you check it off on the list and you're done with that thing. It means for the rest of the semester, you never have to do that thing again. Unless, sometimes it's part of some other thing, but on future exams or whatever, if you see another question which is based on something you already mastered, you don't have to do that, all right? It says, let's just stick to the paper here. If a student answers an exam question correctly, this objective will be marked as mastered. Once an objective is mastered, the student does not need to answer any more questions addressing that objective. There is no penalty if a student answers a question incorrectly, but this objective will remain unmastered. The student can master that objective by correctly answering questions on later exams. So every time we have a test, there will be a question about every one of these things, at least the ones that we've covered so far. If you get it wrong, your grade is not screwed. It just means you didn't get that check yet. And that question, or not the same question, but a similar question will appear on the next test. And that is your chance to get the check mark for that question the next time around, all right? So that means if you look ahead, you'll see actually we're going to have a lot of tests. We're having 4 big tests during the semester, plus the final exam. And the reason that you have a lot of tests is so that you get more chances to get more and more check marks, all right? It means that when you take a test in this class, you don't really get a grade for the test. You just get some of your things checked off. And by the time you get to the end of the class, your goal is to have everything checked off. But if you somehow just totally bomb one of the tests, there's no penalty for that. It just means you didn't get those checks yet, and you have to work on getting them on the next test. Yes?
How many questions are there for one test, in one test?
Each test will have one question for each of the topics on the list. Of the ones that we've covered so far. So the last test will have a question for every single one of them. On the earlier tests, we haven't gotten to some of the stuff yet, so you won't see questions about those. All right. I hope that everybody's getting the basic idea. Let me just make sure that I said everything. I said each exam will include questions addressing all the objectives covered so far, but the students only need to answer questions covering objectives that they have not yet mastered. So that means if you take the first test and you get all the questions right, you will see that material again on the next test, but you don't have to do it the second time around because you already got the check marks. What this means is you have to keep track and you have to know which ones you've already mastered before you go into one of our tests. I'm going to be keeping track too, so if you ever find yourself wondering, you can ask me, but I'd appreciate it if you try to keep track of yourselves.
Would we be able to have this checklist with us during the test?
Yeah, so this checklist, which I just handed out to you, you should keep that forever, and you should bring it to the tests with the checks, just so that you remember which ones you've checked out. I suppose that also means you shouldn't also write other stuff on it, because the test, I don't want you to bring notes to the test, so don't write a bunch of notes on that paper, because you're going to bring that paper to the test. All right? What else can I say about it? That's the basic idea. Does anybody have any questions about how this works? Like I said, I know this is weird, but the idea is, I find in a class like this, all I care about is by the end of the class, you know all of this stuff, all right? If you don't know it on the first test, but you end up knowing it by the end, that's fine with me. So I would like to have a grading system in which you don't get screwed by failing early on in the test if you eventually succeed anyway, because all I care about is that you eventually succeed anyway. So this system is meant to make it so that you cannot screw yourself over at the beginning by doing poorly and then ruining your grade forever. There is no such thing as ruining your grade forever. All right? I think, have I said everything that I wanted to say about that? Yeah, are there any questions about that? I hope that this seems like a good idea to you. I don't know if it seems like a good idea.
It sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely not the usual way to go about. Any thoughts? All right, let's think about it. don't lose that paper. If you go to the class website on here, I have another copy of that. So if you do lose it, it's fine. But you will want to keep track of all the objectives. Every time you see a question on a test, it will be specifically labeled as one of those things. A1, A2, whatever. So you will always know which of the checks each question is addressing. All right. I hope that sounds like a good idea to you. Okay, let's look on the next page there. Exams. So, like I said, there's kind of a lot of tests. Exams will be on Fridays, and there's the dates: February 10, March 3rd, March 31st, and April 28th. April 28th is the last day of class. If you're going to miss an exam, you got to tell me ahead of time. Another thing about this is you can actually, if you want to, just not do one of the exams, and I suppose you'll get no credit for those questions. But I don't recommend it. But this is how this system works here. If you don't show up to an exam, you probably won't be able to make it up. That means, like if you don't have any reason, you just don't show up. I'm not into that. All right. It says each exam will include one question for each objective covered so far. Students may skip questions covering objectives that they have already mastered. Or I suppose you could skip whatever questions you want, right? Students do not receive a grade for a completed exam. They are simply awarded mastery points on some of the objectives. And so because of this, there is one I suppose, perhaps downside. Because of this system, there's not really going to be partial credit for the questions, right? On each question, either you did it right or you didn't do it right. If you do it right, then it counts as mastered. If you didn't do it right, it's not mastered. Like I said, there's no penalty for getting it wrong. It's just you didn't master it yet. Yeah?
What if by the end of the semester you don't have all checks?
So your grade for the semester, we could talk about under the grading section there. So we're also going to have homework, which is totally separate, but your grade is based on this mastery checklist plus your homework grade. And the way the grade works for the mastery is just like your grade is just based on how many of the checks you got. So if you got half of the checks, your grade is 50%. Not very good. All right? Hypothetically speaking, of course. So I hope that everybody gets, all the checks. Then your grade for that is 75% of your total grade would be 100%. All right? The final exam is your last chance to master any of the remaining objectives. The last exam is on the last day of class, and that exam will include a question from every objective. So if you have already gotten all your checks on the last day of class, then you're done. There's no reason for you to take the final exam. And really, everybody, when you show up to the final exam, you will only be looking to answer the questions that are on the checks which remain for you, which you haven't gotten yet. All right? So that's why it says the final exam is optional. Really, all of the exams are optional, although you should do all of the exams. But if you've already got all the checks, this is my dream for you all, is that by the last day of class, you have gotten all the checks already, and then you don't have to do the final. Yeah?
I'm so sorry. You just said the final exam was on the last day of the class, which says April 28th. The front page says the final exam is on May 9th.
Yeah, so there are 4, I didn't mean that if I said that.
Are there 5 total exams, 4 tests plus
That's
the
right.
final exam?
Yeah, so the last day of class, there's a test in person. And then there's also the final exam, which happens a week later during.
So there's 5 tests.
There are 5 tests total. Yeah, 4 during class period plus 1 final exam.
Okay.
But as I was saying, if you do everything right, you won't even have to do the final exam because you will have already gotten all your checks on the last day. Although practically speaking, probably you will have 2 or 3 topics left over that you still haven't gotten by the time of the final exam, and that becomes your last chance. The final exam, as usual, will be scheduled for 3 hours, but I expect that most of you will only have 2 or 3 questions that you have to answer anyway, so it's not going to be a super big deal. All right. Any more thoughts about that? It'll take a bit of getting used to probably, but I think it might be a good system. Okay, the homeworks there. So the homeworks are going to be much more traditional. Every week there will be a homework assignment, and the homework assignments will be posted at the class website, like I said. There will be problems for you to do. You write the answers. I will give you partial credit based on how close your answers are, and you'll get sort of an ordinary type grade as you would on a typical math homework assignment for the homeworks, all right? So the homeworks, everybody has to do all the homework assignments. It's not like you can skip some or whatever, all right? It says the homework will be due each Wednesday night at midnight, and the assignments cover the material from the previous week. So the idea is, we have class on Tuesday and Friday. Whatever we cover on Tuesday and Friday, you have until Wednesday of the next week to do the homework, which is based on that material. I hope it's not weird that the homework is due on Wednesday when we don't have class on Wednesday. You're going to submit your homeworks electronically on GradeScope. I don't know if you've used this before, but this is an online electronic grade sort of like homework submission type place where you will submit your homeworks. All right, and I'll give you more details about how exactly that works. It says late homeworks without excuse will lose 1/3 credit for each calendar day. Obviously, if you have excuses or something's going on, let me know and we can work it out. But that's the rule about the homeworks. All right. It also says in there about homework, students are encouraged to work together on the assignments. If you want to work with your buddies, that's totally fine with me. But everybody should hand in your own paper. Like don't just write 2 names on the same paper. But you can work together. That's totally fine. All right. The grading breakdown, you can see there, the mastery, the checklist is 75%. The homework is 25%. And a little note about showing your work. Basically says, yes, you should show your work on pretty much everything. If you flip over to the back, it's a little business about attendance there. Attendance is not part of your grade. It's not, one of those things. And like I said before, I'm going to post everything online after the fact. So I'm trying to make it easy for you. If you do end up missing class, I want it to be easy for you to keep up. But it says students who miss class are 100% responsible for making sure all assignments are still completed on schedule. So don't tell me like, oh, I didn't go to class so I couldn't do the homework. I will try to help out. But if you aren't able to come to class, that's fine. But it's sort of on you to work that out. And if you do need my help to work things out, that's totally fine too. But I'm not going to try to reach out to you. It's your job to reach out to me in that case. All right. There's a little note here about my office hours. It says the professor regards visits to office hours as part of the instruction for this course. What I'm trying to say here is just that I hope that you'll feel comfortable talking to me outside of class, either during my normal office hours, or send me an email if you have questions about the homework or something like that. I would be happy to chat with you, and actually I consider this to be an important part of how the class runs. It's certainly not required that you ever talk to me. That's fine if you don't want to talk to me, but I'm not sure what your sort of upbringing was. Like, I remember when I was in high school, for instance, I never ever wanted to talk to my math teacher outside of class, because that was a sign that like I was in some kind of crisis if I had to talk to my teacher outside of class. I hope that that's not your opinion or the way that you feel about things, and it's certainly not the way that I think. I think that even if you're doing very well, some of the homework questions are hard, and I would expect that anybody could benefit from talking about it every so often. Like I said, certainly not required, but I hope that you will feel free to chat. All right, and then there's just a little note about the counseling services. I hope that you are aware we have free counseling services. Can you believe it? In these United States of America, free health care.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know they were free.
Okay. I mean,
I should take
as long as you're paying a ridiculous tuition price,
Yeah.
it's free. Yeah, that's what I mean by free, included.
Yeah.
Check it out. I have found counseling services. I don't get it for free here, but it's helpful from time to time. Sometimes I'm talking with my wife and she says, maybe you should talk to Stacy about that. Yeah, maybe I should talk to Stacy about that. Check it out if you're interested. All right, I think that's the end of my little introduction here. Are there any questions about any of that? I hope that it sounds clear. Yes?
There's some GradeScope now.
There's a dummy assignment.
Yes, I have a little, just to make sure everybody is hip with the GradeScope. You should have gotten an email yesterday about grade scope, and I didn't want to do this right now, but in a few minutes we're going to do just a little sort of dummy assignment to make sure that everybody understands how it works. But that's the purpose of that. All right. Yeah, we'll do that in a little bit. I thought before we get to that, I wanted to give you kind of my vision for this class. I don't know if I'm going to write anything just yet. My vision for the mathematics and exploration. This is, as I said, a math class for people who are typically not into math. Maybe if you would describe yourself as a person who doesn't really like math, this is the kind of place for you. This is the class for you. I thought I'd give you sort of my vision for how I want this class to go. My dream for how this class can go is sort of inspired by a 90s teen movie. I don't know if you're familiar with this film. It's called She's All That. I think there was recently a remake called He's All That. This is a movie that I watched once because it was on TV and my sister was watching it, and we only had one TV in my house, and it was like, if my sister's watching something, then I'm like automatically watching it too. The idea is, so She's All That is about a sort of a nerdy girl in high school, and she has a ponytail and she wears big glasses, and there's some hot jock at the school, and the jock and his buddies, his bro buddies, they decide that it would be hilarious if, as a joke, the jock asks out the nerdy girl to the prom, and this would be so funny, and so as a joke, the jock asks out the nerdy girl to the prom, and she agrees to go to the prom with him. She doesn't realize that it's a big joke, and then in preparation for going to the prom, she gets together with her sort of cool aunt, and she gives her this makeover, and the makeover basically just consists of her taking out the ponytail and taking her glasses off, and suddenly she's this hot, sexy girl, and she goes to the prom with the jock, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe it, you're hot now," and they actually start dating, they're really together, not as a joke because she's hot now, and then, can you believe it, she finds out towards the end of the movie, 15 minutes before the end of the movie, she finds out that it was meant to be a big joke, and she's like, "Oh, you never really liked me, this was all just a joke," and he's like, no, I really do like you, and she says, "Oh, it's just because I'm hot now you like me, you never really liked me for who I am," and there's the jock has to go through some business to convince her that no, you really yes, you are hot, but I really like you as a person, it's not just because you took your glasses off. I've really learned to see your inner beauty or whatever. And then at the end, she eventually takes him back, and at the end she's in this she's still sort of hot, but she still wears her glasses sometimes, but that's actually, now you realize that's kind of hot when she wears her glasses too. That's the way that the scenario finishes off towards the end of the movie, right? So anyway, this is my vision for this class, all right? I'm going to take mathematics, which is not so hot in the public eye at least. It is my intention to maybe take off the glasses and take out the ponytail and maybe help you to appreciate something about the beauty of mathematics. That's what I am interested in. Me personally as a mathematician, I'm actually not I'm not terribly interested in numbers, and actually, you'll see soon enough, I'm not great at adding and multiplying numbers. That's just not my thing, and it's not. That's not what a mathematician does all day, multiply numbers together. What I'm interested in, why I am a mathematician, is because I am interested in mathematical beauty, and this is part of what I want to share with you. So, realistically speaking, I don't expect to turn you all into mathematical enthusiasts, but I would like to try to share with you a piece of the beauty of mathematics. And hopefully by the end of class, you will have some kind of appreciation for maybe there is something sort of hot and beautiful about it after all. Now, it doesn't mean that you're gonna like be really into math for the rest of your life, but I am, sometimes I think of this as a bit of a cross-cultural kind of experience. I'm gonna try to show you something of the beauty of mathematics, and I hope that it comes across, and I hope that later in your life, you can appreciate some aspects of mathematical beauty without them being sort of sexied up for you. Like you don't want to only appreciate something because I made it sound interesting when really it's not very interesting at all. I hope that I'm not trying to fool you into thinking these things are interesting. I hope that you really will think that they are interesting, at least a little bit. All right? That's my vision for the class. I hope that sounds good to everybody. We'll see how it goes, I guess. So maybe I will say what I want to talk about in this class is about ideas which I think are interesting. Interesting ideas. All right? That's the bar for whether or not we are going to talk about something in this class. Now, it said in the course description, basically, the class is made up of topics that are of the instructor's choosing. So I have chosen different ideas to talk about in this class based on what seems interesting to me, and I hope that they seem interesting to you also. They are not meant to be, I will say, not necessarily, is that how you spell it? Not necessarily useful ideas. That's not really what this class is about. Because, as I said before, I expect that you all are not going to become scientists or whatever. And so it is not really my job to teach you how to do some kind of useful mathematics. I think, to be honest, all of the math that ordinary people use in their real lives are things that you learned when you were a kid, like when you were in elementary school. Like I myself, I know very advanced math, but I don't use basically any math in my normal life other than adding and multiplying. I like to cook. Sometimes I want to like multiply a recipe by 1.5 or something. So I have in my real life multiplied fractions, but that's something I learned how to do, I don't know, in 5th grade maybe? I don't know. I'm just saying the idea that you're supposed to learn useful math in college is a little absurd. Like all of the math that an ordinary person ever uses, you already know. So I'm not trying to add on to your sort of toolbox of useful mathematics. That's done with. What is important is interesting in this class. So if you ever are wondering to yourself, like, why are we even talking about this? That's totally a fair question to ask. Don't ask me, when am I ever going to use this, though? Because the answer is, you're not, and neither am I. You can ask me, why is this interesting? Why should I be interested in this? And then I will try to explain if I have to. Hopefully these things will be interesting anyway. Can I just say, not necessarily useful? I will say not much numbers, calculating, this kind of thing. Did I mention? I think I said this in the syllabus. There's going to be no calculators on our tests. That's because you're not going to want a calculator for this kind of stuff that we're doing. Not a lot of numbers calculating, not a lot of formulas. I mean, like, no formulas.
What?
It's true. Not a lot of geometry. These things are obviously important in mathematics in general, but that's not what this class is about. You will not be memorizing. I said you can't write notes on your little checklist there, but actually there are not, there are no formulas to memorize, and there's no calculating numbers to do in your head or something like that. All right? I would like to talk about things which are interesting and also kind of complicated. I hope you're not getting the sense that everything we talk about is going to be easy. It's not all going to be easy. It just doesn't involve a lot of this stuff. Interesting and somewhat complicated. Actually, I will say the topics are, I will say, simple in quotes. These are all things that you could, talk to your grandma about if you wanted to, and your grandma would more or less understand what you were talking about. But I will say more complex than they seem. All right? This is this is sort of the hallmark of a good topic that I like to talk about in this class. Something that seems very simple on the surface, but actually is much more interesting than you expect when you really look at it closely. All right? I think this, maybe leads us into, I'll tell you what our first major topic is going to be. The first thing that we're going to talk about for the first several weeks is voting. So this is our big first topic, is voting. And I think we can just get right down to it, maybe. Look at my clock. Yeah, we got 40 minutes we can talk about. Voting is the first big thing. You'll see on the checklist there's like 10 or 11 things about voting, something like that. Let's talk about voting. The idea of voting is very simple. I think especially to Americans, we are, raised from a very young age to use voting to decide things all the time. We have little votes in our kindergarten classes. Can I just say, voting is not so simple as it seems. And it's my goal today in our first 40 minutes together, my goal is to convince you that voting is not so simple as it seems. All right. I don't know if you feel like voting is simple. I, as a born and raised American citizen, I have always felt like voting is just kind of an obvious thing to do. All right. Let me tell you about the idea of voting. This is something that not a lot of people really think carefully about, but the idea of voting is pretty. It's a simple idea. It's when potentially a big group of people disagree about something, but they have to make a decision for some reason. They have to act on a decision or whatever. They have to together make a decision. So a group of people disagree, but must make a choice. And so what do? You say, hey, let's have a vote. So this involves kind of two steps. You ask everybody's opinion. So everybody says their own individual opinion, and then you combine all of those opinions into a single group opinion. You assemble all of the individual opinions, combine these into a single, what we sometimes call, sort of cliche, will of the people. You ask everybody what their opinion is, and then based on what everybody says, you gather together all of those opinions into one single, final answer, which represents the will of the people. All right? This, like I said, this seems like a simple and obvious idea to me, at least, I think just because of my cultural upbringing. We talk about voting all the time in America. But actually, this is, I would say, on its surface, not at all obvious that this is a good idea. Not obviously a good idea. Now, I don't mean to sound like a skeptic of democracy. Actually, I do believe in the principles of democracy, and I do believe that voting is a good way to structure a society. But just when you look at this on its surface, it doesn't really sound like a great idea that you could somehow ask for everybody's opinion and then gather those opinions together, and the result represents kind of the opinion of everybody together. That, I would say, that basic idea is maybe not even really true. Like when I think about when we elect, we elected the president of the United States, we had the election a couple years ago between Trump and Biden. And Biden won the election by a little bit. I mean, if you look at percentages or whatever. It's not like Biden got 80% of the vote. No, it's more like he got 51 or something. I don't know the details. But Biden won the election by a little bit. Trump lost the election by a little bit. Biden becomes the president. Now, does that really mean that it was the will of the American people that Biden be the president?
No.
I would say not really. It means that it was the will of like a little bit more than a half of them that Biden becomes the president. We have this kind of idea of which I think is somewhat of a fantasy, that the results of an election somehow represent the true will of the nation. When I think to be more accurate, it would be more accurate to say like the whole nation as a whole doesn't have a true will. People disagree. That's why we vote in the first place. Yes.
Not only that, but the idea that they're voting for their true will when they are given two options.
Right.
Like nowadays, voting is generally thought of like trying to make sure the less bad option.
Yeah. Right. The results of the vote are really just, I mean, I'm not going to really, I should say at the outset, I don't intend to talk a lot about politics here, because I'm a mathematician. I'm not a politics expert, and it's not my place to tell you what you should think about politics. It is kind of my place to tell you what you should think about mathematics. So that's what I'm going to focus on. I hope that you don't feel like what I'm saying is like me expressing my own political opinions in a venue where I am standing in front of you all and you all have to just listen to me talk about my own opinions. I'm not into that. So please feel free to tell me if you think that I'm talking about my own opinions. I did already say that Biden won the election. I'm going to say that, but I'm not trying to give you my own political hot takes. Anyway, what I'm saying is the whole concept of voting and why it's a good idea, it's not, I will say, not obviously a good idea. And in fact, you can see this in history if you look at the way that people thought about the United States when the United States began. Like it was, pretty much the only major nation which was trying to govern itself purely by democracy. And everywhere else around the world, they said those guys are crazy. That's never going to work. And I believe that it does work fairly well, but I don't blame those guys for saying that sounds like a crazy idea, because on some level it is kind of a crazy idea. All right. I would like to do a little exercise here, just to get us going with this discussion. I would like for us to have a quick little class election. Can we do this? I want an example vote. What I would like for us to decide, I'm not trying to get any hot political takes here. I would like for us to vote about something fairly inconsequential, and I have decided that we should vote on what is the best, you have to think about this for a moment, the best single ingredient food, in your opinion. Best, I mean that tastes the best. Single ingredient food. I'm talking about something like an apple or something. You just eat a thing. It's not like a pizza, which has many parts to it. It's not Golden Grams, which is made by a factory somewhere. Think about the best single ingredient food, the one that tastes the best. Not the one, I don't want to say like wheat, which can sustain an entire population, but you don't really eat wheat off the stock, right? So anyway, this is what I want to think about. I would like, just to get us going, I'm going to suggest, what I would like is, when people all vote on something, first of all, you need to have some kind of a ballot, right? If I just asked you all to just make up your favorite single ingredient food, you might all say different things, and then that's a much less meaningful result if we vote in that way. So I want to try to make a ballot. I'm going to suggest, let's just make a list first, and then we'll decide, we'll narrow it down to a few choices that we can actually have on the ballot. I'm going to suggest mango, because I like mangoes. Anybody have an idea? Yes?
I have actually a clarification question.
Okay.
For something like rice, would that count as a single ingredient because you technically need water to prepare it, or would that not count?
I will allow rice.
Okay.
Yes.
Put down rice.
Rice, okay. Anybody else got an idea? Yeah? Cheese, all right. I'll allow it. That's borderline to me. I don't want to get into details about which cheese exactly. Yeah? Pineapple. All right, I'm into that. I really like pineapple. My kids, I have 2 kids. For some reason, I had never heard of this. When they eat pineapple, it makes their tongue itchy. You ever heard of? I never heard of this
I think
before.
that's an allergy.
That's either
Yeah.
an allergy or the acids in the pineapple trying to disintegrate your tongue.
Yeah, it's a shame. So I don't get to eat as much pineapple as I would like. Somebody else? I saw somebody over here. Yeah.
Watermelon.
Watermelon. All right, I like that. Any others? These are mostly. Yeah.
Green grapes.
Green grapes. Can I just say grapes to get a little more? Grapes. All right. I went to Thailand once. I got a river shrimp. Someone told me this is the greatest single ingredient food in the world. The giant shrimps that they catch individually with fishing rods. It's pretty good. I don't know. I saw somebody else back there. Yes.
Would like maple syrup count?
Oh yeah, maple syrup. I'm into that. Fun fact, I make my own maple syrup from a tree in my backyard in Fairfield, Connecticut. Yeah. I gotta set that up actually. It's that time of year. Gotta drill them. Any others? All right, I would like to narrow this down to 4 options to have on a ballot. I think this is still maybe too much to put on a ballot. So maybe can I go down the list here? And if you think this should be on the ballot, just raise your hand. And if you don't, then don't. And then I'm not trying to be too scientific here. We'll see which are the most popular of the 4. All right, so who likes mango to be on the ballot? Oh, come on, not a lot. All right, rice? Okay, cheese? I think cheese. All right, pineapple? Okay, watermelon? Okay, grapes? I also grow grapes in my yard. They're not good though. And maple syrup. Okay, I am going to say unscientifically that the winners were cheese, pineapple, watermelon, and maple syrup. I think that those were, I don't really care what you think. Let's just say those were the top 4, all right? And these are going to be on the ballot. So what I would like, and this is going to be our little exercise just to make sure everybody knows how Gradescope works. The way you're going to submit your homeworks on Gradescope is you're going to write your answers just like you always would for a math homework on your own paper. Just write all your answers, and then you're going to take photos with your phone and send the pictures to Gradescope. This is how Gradescope is meant to work. So, if you would please, you need your phone to submit them. It's difficult to do on a computer. You should just use your phone. There is a Gradescope app, or you can just visit gradescope.com in your browser. And you should have gotten an email yesterday with information about how to log in. So if they sent you a link there, visit that link on your phone, and you will see instructions about how to submit your answers. So what I would like for you all to do is, let me just, I want you to write on a piece of paper. Let's do them in this order. Cheese, pineapple, watermelon, maple syrup. Okay, so there are 4 choices here, and just to make it interesting, I would like you, don't just like check one off. I would like you to rank your choices just to make it a little more interesting. So tell me, I like this one the best, then this one, then this one, then this one. So put 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1 is the best. All right, so maybe I don't want to influence you, but maybe your vote would go, 2, 1, 3, 4, something like that. This is what I want you to write down, all right? And then take a picture of this on your paper and submit that to the question that you see in the Gradescope, all right? I'm going to walk around in a moment just to make sure that everybody is getting through properly, and I hope that this goes well for everybody. One more thing. There are actually 2 questions in this dummy assignment. The other question is, this is a question you can answer for yourself, should I hassle you or not if you forget to submit the homework? All right? I know some people don't want to be hassled if they miss an assignment or whatever. But some people do like to be hassled, and I'm not, I don't like to act like a cop about doing the homeworks. But if you would appreciate, sometimes people just forget to send it in. It's due on a Wednesday, which is not a class day. So if you want me to remind you when you don't do an assignment, please let me know. So the other one, for your other thing, you can write something like, please hassle me. Or, please don't hassle me.
So we take the photos and then we just like reply to this email with that.
Now, in the email, there should be information about how to log into Gradescope and everything you do through the website.
I just click the link. Oh, okay.
Yep. So try it out. I'm going to walk around and make sure that everybody is doing okay. And please let me know if it's not working out.
So I thought this was due before class, but I already did.
Oh, you did already?
So I didn't understand the first question,
Okay.
but I did the second one.
Okay, great. You
So-
can
Can I resubmit it again, or
Yes.
will these all
Yes.
again?
Yeah. If you ever submit, like if you do the homework and you realize you messed it up, you can always resubmit after the fact.
Okay.
So hopefully, yeah.
What should I submit for this, guys? So you just like that?
Yeah. So you're meant to do this with your phone.
Oh, okay. So I should just go ahead and.
Yeah. Use
Okay.
this website through your phone.
All right. Sounds good.
It is easiest if you do everything through your phone. You know what? Yesterday. I can resend it, but not right now, so
Should I just look up the last one?
it's probably not. Like it gets.
Oh, okay.
You search for Gradescope. You okay? Good. It's working for you guys?
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm. Working out?
Oh, I like that.
Already submitted, I have
Okay,
these grades.
great. Alright. Working out? Alright.
Maybe I could have the time where we'll maybe have two photos for a single question. Like, how would you submit that one photo for one? Okay. I know we don't actually know how you do it, but it is allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. If I remember. If I remember.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna be, like, for the homework, you're gonna do it on the paper.
Yeah, I just remember if I take two photos.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how.
Figure it out.
You can always combine photos yourself, I guess. So that's
Okay, yeah.
kind of thing. Working on it.
Yeah, just because I asked them. Yeah. So, just after the second.
Okay.
Probably just gonna work.
All right, I'll give you a few more minutes. Please let me know if it's not working. The purpose of this is mostly just to make sure you know how to use Gradescope for our first real assignment. I'll give you a couple more minutes. If you end up never figuring it out right now, please let me know, and we'll make sure to work it out before our first real assignment is due. All right, I think it's time to continue. Like I said, please let me know if you were not able to make it work. I would be happy to try and help out. You want to be sure you know how to do this all before our first real assignment, which will be probably next week. All right. Great. So you should have all made a decision like this and submitted it to you. So before next class, I'm going to read all of your votes like this and tell you the results. Now, I want to actually talk about the results of this. How should we decide who the winner is in an election like this, where everybody voted and ranked these choices here, right? I'm just going to copy this down here. How to decide the winner. In a so-called like ordinary election, I think what most people are used to is an election where you're presented with a bunch of options and you just pick one, like you put a check mark next to one of them. And then how do you decide the winner? Actually, in that case, it's easy. If it was that kind of election, I would just count up how many check marks each of them got, and whoever got the most would be the winner. That's how we decide the winner. But what about an election like this? You might say, like, this is just a bad way to do elections because it's not clear how to choose the winner. But actually, I would say this: when you ask somebody to give a vote in this format, it's actually even better than just asking them to check off one. Because if I had asked this person to just check one, they would have checked off the pineapple, so I know they like the pineapple better. But here, when I ask for the numbers, actually, this is more information, isn't it? Like I can tell by looking at this that they like the pineapple the best, but they also like the cheese the second, and the watermelon the third, and the maple syrup the fourth, right? So this is actually a better in terms of gathering information. You are gathering more information this way, so this is a better way to ask people how to vote. But the question is, how are we going to decide who the winner is? I can think of one sort of obvious way to do that. That would be, we could count up the, how about the greatest number of ones, right? I could count up like how many put pineapple as number one versus how many put the cheese as number one versus how many put the watermelon or the maple syrup as number one. That's one way that I could count up. Anybody have another idea? Is there some other way that you could think of counting up the, or figuring out the winner? Yeah.
You could assign points to the order of the ranking and then add up those.
Yeah. You could somehow think about these rankings as points, or here's something that's actually, I think, the same as what he's saying, is you could look at everybody's number for cheese and take the average of all those numbers. Maybe it's like, 2.7. That means a lot of people gave it 2s, some people gave it 3s, right? Or you could average up the numbers for the pineapples and do that for everybody, and then choose the answer based on, I suppose it would be the lowest number in this case, right? So you could count up the greatest number of ones. Another thing you could do is you could average the rankings for each option and then choose the best, which in this case I guess would be the lower number would be the better, but whatever. All right. You could also, like he said, you could give people points based on their rankings and add up all the points. I think actually that is maybe similar to this, although these two options look pretty different. Can I just say you could assign points somehow? That's another thing. Maybe that's the same as the average of the rankings. I don't know. But what I'm trying to give you the impression of is there are a few different ways that you could add these up. And none of these is obviously the best way to do it, at least in my opinion. I don't feel like one of these is a super bad idea and another one is a super good idea, right? I will say there are several non-obvious ways that we could, really this is about calculating the result. all right? There are several non-obvious ways that we can calculate the result in an election like this. Now, if all you're doing is asking people to choose their favorite, then there's sort of just one ordinary way to add up those answers. But if you're asking people to supply more information like this, you have several non-obvious ways that you can calculate the result here. Which of those ways would be the best? Well, what I mean by non-obvious is it's not clear if they're good or bad or what. So one major thing that we're going to look closely at is what are some different ways I hope that you can all read my handwriting, by the way. Please let me know if you ever feel free to interrupt with questions or tell me to write better. What are some different ways to choose the winner? And which way, this is the obvious question to ask, which way is the best? If you have several different ways that you could choose the winner of an election, which way should we actually do it, like in real life, to do it in the best possible way, all right? And it turns out, a little spoiler alert here, I'm going to give away the answer to this question. This is a question we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks, but it turns out the answer really is, yes, there are many different ways to do it, and none of them is the best way. There are pros and cons to each way, and there is no such thing as a perfect way to do voting or the best way to do voting. This is something that we're going to talk a lot about in the future. It turns out there's no quote-unquote best way. All of the different methods that you can use to add up votes and decide who the winner is, all of the different methods actually have some kind of issues with them. They all have some, they have some good points and some bad points. There is no unambiguously good method for computing the winner of an election when you're doing this kind of voting, all right? This is why, and this is not a surprise to people who have studied this before. Like I'm not saying anything that was not known by, for instance, the people who created the government in the United States in the old days. This is why sometimes people say, like there's a famous quote by Churchill. He said that democracy is the worst form of government. This is Winston Churchill from the UK. Democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. This is supposed to be a joke or something. I don't know. He's trying to be cute about it, but it is a true fact that, like, we don't do voting because it's perfect. We do voting because it's better than like just sort of dictatorships or what. Like, what else are you going to do? Is basically the reason. I think there is this, and this is not just my opinion, or this is not my political hot take. Churchill was trying to get some laughs by saying this, but actually there are mathematical ways that we can think about this, mathematical ways that we can demonstrate that there are flaws, there are shortcomings to any kind of different voting system that you could think of. So this is what we're going to be getting into over the next few weeks. All right. What do we got? We got 10 more minutes. I think we can talk. Let's try to talk a little bit specifically about this. I want to, just in our remaining 10 minutes today, I would like to try to convince you that there are some situations in which there really is no good way to come up with a winner in an election. So here is an example. Whoa, sorry. I'm getting used to this chair. It's like slightly too high. I'm not heavy enough to make it go down. There it is. All right. Okay, so I want to look at a specific example here. Now, we're going to do a lot of specific examples in this class and about votes, and I don't want to like invent some kind of, Biden versus Trump scenario every time. So usually we're going to, when I write an example, we're going to assume that voters are choosing between options, let's just say A, B, C, D, etc. All right. Usually it's just going to be like A, B, C or whatever. I'm not going to try to invent, pineapple, watermelon, whatever each time. I'm just going to call the options A, B, C or whatever. And voters rank their choices just like we did before. Like one vote may say A, C, B. All right, that means A is the best, then C, then B is the worst, right? This is how we're going to write this. This is not complicated. I'm just saying this is how we're going to write things just so that everybody understands what we're talking about here. All right? One voter might say A, C, B. Another voter might say B, C, A, that kind of thing. And that means they like A the best, and then C second best, and then B is the worst. All right? So let's imagine a specific example. Let's say we have A, B, and C are the candidates, or the three options that we're trying to choose between. All right? And let's say that 25 voters say A, B, C. Let's say 37 voters say B, A, C. I'm just making up a specific example here. And let's say 38 voters say A, C, B. All right? This is my specific example that I want to discuss. In real life, everybody's going to just vote some other way. And you'd be able to count up, okay, how many people said this? How many people said this? Let's imagine that we had 25 people said ABC, 37 said BAC, 38 said ACB. All right? This actually, we are going to, it's just more convenient. We're going to express all of that with a little table. So we write it in a chart. This is what, like most of your homework problems for this part of the course at least, are going to involve little charts that look like this. 25 ABC. So this means 25 people said ABC. I'm just translating that stuff up there into a chart, which is easier to handle. Let's say 37 people said BAC and 38 people said ACB. All right? This is what a typical, example election homework problem or test question or whatever would look like. I give you a chart like this. This tells you how everybody voted. And then I will ask you questions about this. All right? Something that I would like to examine here. So I'm going to ask, who should win? Based on those votes. Now, anybody looking at this have some idea of who they think should be the winner? I'm not asking you to come up with some kind of method, but just your gut instinct looking at these. Yeah. What do you think? A. Why do you say A?
It has the most first place votes. It doesn't spend any time at the bottom.
Yeah, you can see like A is, these people all think A is best. These people all also think A is the best. Actually, if you take these people and these people together, I chose these numbers, I don't know if you noticed, so that there's 100 people total here. If you add those numbers up, it makes 100. And if you just took these and these, that adds up to what, 63, right? 63 out of 100 think that A is the best. So seems to me maybe A should be the winner here. Is that what you were going to say?
Yeah.
Something like that? Yeah. It seems to me that that A seems like A is pretty strong here. And I'm being a little informal about this, but I would also, just looking at the chart there, I would say C is pretty weak, right? Everybody in the first two columns think that C is the absolute worst, and then the last column thinks that C is only second best, right? Nobody actually thinks that C is the best. So I would say here, actually it makes no sense at all to make C the winner, because 0 voters think that C should be the winner, right? Seems like A is pretty strong. I will say nobody wants C to win, right? So probably if it was up to me to just informally decide the winner here, I would pick A. What about, I have another example here. What about this? Sorry. Here's a new example. What if 3 people said A, then B, then C? Another 3 people said, B, then C, then A. And another 3 people said C, and then A, and then B. All right. How should we choose the winner here? Anybody have a feeling about this? I think there's one obvious thing to say here about the results of this one.
They're all mixed.
They're all mixed up, yeah. I'm thinking of the T word when I look at this.
Oh, tie. That's
Yeah, it seems like this is just like a tie, right? You have A, B, and C are all on top in equal proportions, right? And actually, they're also in second place an equal number of times, and they're in last place an equal number of times. So this, I would say, looks like a 3-way tie, I guess, right? But actually, there's something a little interesting about this. If you look a little bit below the surface here, it looks like a 3-way tie where all of these candidates, A, B, and C, are just kind of completely equal. But here's something that I would like to point out. If I were to look at this election here, but just temporarily ignore the C's. So if I disregard the C's for a moment and only look at A versus B, if I consider only A versus B, then you can kind of look at this in your head. Just ignore where the C's are, or if you like, you can redraw the chart. Then it would say A, B. I'm leaving out the C's. I'm just drawing the same chart, but leaving out the C's. Like that, right? If I consider only A versus B, actually at this point, A is a clear winner, right? So I don't know so much anymore about 3-way tie. If you thought this was a 3-way tie, actually, these people like A better than B. So it's not a 3-way tie, right? This is weird. I hope that if you're paying attention, you should think this is weird. If I consider only A versus B, the people like A better than B. The people like A more than B. So, from this point of view, it's definitely not a 3-way tie because A is better than B, all right? We could also consider, what if I look at this whole chart here? Now, I threw away the C and looked at it, but we could also look at this chart but throw away the A, and we could also look at this chart but throw away the B. So let's look at what happens if I consider only let's just look at B versus C. All right. What does it look like then? Sorry, I have to keep scrolling back and forth. But this chart, if I were to rewrite this chart, only B's and C's now. The first column, I disregard the A. It says 3 people have B above C. The next column is also B above C. And the last column is C above B. All right. So here, if we consider only B versus C, again, it's clear B is preferred above C, all right? So the people like A more than B from here. They also like B more than C.
But it's a paradox.
Right? It's a paradox.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because if you omit B and you just have A and C, then C goes twice over A.
Yeah, I think he's looking ahead one step here. If we consider only A versus C, sorry, I can't see the chart anymore. It looks like the first column A is above, the second column C is above, the last column C is above. So it looks like this: AC, CA, CA. And here, they like C more than A. He says it's a paradox, and I agree. What we've concluded is the people like A better than B. They also like B better than C, and they also like C better than A. This is the sort of nonsensical part. How can all three of these things be true? It don't make no sense, is what I'm saying. And this is just a fact about voting. Sometimes the people don't make no sense. Another reason why I would say in this situation, you might as well not vote. Voting is not the proper way to make the decision in this kind of a scenario. All right, it looks like you're all leaving. See you next time.